Hello. I had two intros for this video, but I chose not to use either of them, and I'm doing this one instead. The first one was extremely cringy, and the second one I didn't want to bother my friends to come do it. So I'm just going to be using this as a backdrop for the intro. I don't have this ready, because it's supposed to be a green screen, but the lighting that I have now makes me really yellow. So I have to get the right lighting before this is ready, because that's evident of my hoodie. I am a disappointment, especially in getting videos out, because this has been a month waiting, because I've basically had this done for a month, and I haven't put it out, and I'm recording this now. So yeah, with that, you're just going to hear how much I really like Shadow Mordor, or basically just my thoughts on it. So enjoy. Yeah. As the title depicts, the game takes place in Mordor, specifically Uldun and the Sea of Nirnen. Uldun being a wasteland of rocks, canyons, and strongholds, the Sea of Nirnen consisting of more strongholds, trees, and even more fucking rocks. However, their contrasting natures show the vastness that Mordor consists of. That being said, the environment has the possibility of feeling the same a majority of the time. Whilst playing, it's never really important to know where you're at all times, because you could just chalk up Uldun as being the canyon place, or Nirnen being the forest place. No place was really important unless reference to the story, such as the Black Gate, Mordor, sometimes Uldun and Nirnen. The smaller areas just being completely redundant. All they had was a name, and all it was used for was for the captains and warchiefs to reside in those areas, let alone just for side missions. Although Mordor's grand beauty does come with its simplicity. Although yes, I did say it can feel the same not even 20 seconds ago. However, I never grew tired of Uldun or Nirnen, regardless of how often I saw, cliff after cliff, or rock after rock. How many fucking rocks is in this game? For real though, for 1 second, Uldun is just a canyon and a wasteland of rocks. You have wood, but that's only in the strongholds. It's just rock and stone everywhere. Nirn is not escaping this either. It may be green, but it's green on top of the rocks, on top of all the stone. Yes, there are some wood fortresses. Still rock everywhere. Everywhere is rock. That's all I see. I was never genuinely mad at it, although seeing a bunch of rocks kind of gets annoying. I was still always glad to see the scenery I had to offer after being in a stronghold for forever, just slaughtering Uruks and orcs everywhere. Moreover, the game just looks great in general. The details on the Uruks and orcs show their power they have over this place. Being donned in armor, scars across the body, bloodstains, infected skin, and metal implants. This, coupled with how each area looks, brings a sense of despair to the game. The game's visuals are just awesome. Although Talion's eyes can look a little creepy sometimes, going through Mordor for the first time, if it's your first time, is an experience to be held. Especially with Uruks cementing the feeling of dread throughout this game. Throughout Mordor, you'll find Uruks pretty much everywhere, holding humans as slaves, pulling them throughout Mordor, branding brutish weapons to maim and kill humans, also turning them amongst themselves, trying to get more power and gain more followers. Speaking of power, once an Uruk kills you, their power will rise immensely. So if you've come here for pretentious writing, well, that's going to stop here in the gameplay section. It's going to be a lot more rudimentary. So the bare majority of Shadow Mordor's gameplay loop consists of //kill, execute, bow and arrows, dagger. That's about it. Albeit that does undersell it quite a bit though. You do have 3 main gameplay states though, you're not all using it at one time. The sword is going to be what you use for the majority of the game. You use it to build up your combo counter until it glows red, to execute whatever kind of special attack you want to that you have acquired. The dagger, on the other hand, is your stealth state. By holding down the button, you crouch down and have access to stealth killing, brutalize, and stealth branding. Stealth killing is stealth killing, brutalize is giving someone 28 stab wounds, and branding is making them your own. Then when you enter your bow state, you slowly drain your focus meter, which is used to only do this kind of stuff. You slow down time, and you can pull back your bow, and, well, one-shot people pretty easily, or pin them to the ground. That's all this really does, or you can teleport by using Shadow Strike. These 3 gameplay states all culminating into an addicting gameplay loop of murdering Uruks and orcs left and right. I mean, just look at this background gameplay. I assume I'm putting in the coolest shit, as in I'm executing this Uruk, I'm throwing daggers at this one to keep my combo counter up to execute another one. I'm probably just putting in the gameplay where I just run around murdering Uruks. But at the start of the game, you weren't like that at all. No, you're scrawny. You're just a little baby performing ground executions.
No! No, don't do it!
So how do I grow up and gain more XP to do all the cool shit I was doing earlier? Well, you murder. Your family's dead, you might as well murder anyway. Or you can do missions for XP, where you murder things. It's just a cycle of death, you're never escaping it. But once you do get enough XP for murdering things, you get ability points, and you apply that to either the Wraith or the Ranger tree. There is no consequences into going to either one more than the other. You can go into both and be perfectly fine. Preferably, there are abilities that you want in one over the other, but eventually you can get all of them. So going into either one is fine, and they all just grow your character. It's not inane +2 to attack or +2% to this certain ability that you may or may never use. It all grows the character. That's really what it does, and I keep saying character when I mean Talion. Though once you get all the abilities on the first tier, you have to go to the next tier. But how do I get power, as it says in the top right, to get power to go to the next tier? Well, for that, you have to murder Captains and Warchiefs, or settle power struggles between Captains and Warchiefs. I will talk about Captains and Warchiefs later, but I do want to emphasize how good this ability tree is, in my opinion. It's never felt as a hindrance, as in I have to level this up to get to this next ability to feel like I'm actually doing something to my character. Every single ability is like an extension to what I can do already. All of it ranging from lowering the amount that the combo counter needs to do a special move, to taming Graugs. For an example, you'll face an enemy type using shields. More on them later, but you get to vault over them from the get-go. Then, once you level up, you can get the Vault Stun ability, and by the name, you can imply what happens after that. Albeit some abilities do seem like they should have been earned later rather than earlier, such as Elven Swiftness, which allows you to, anytime you vault over just like a tiny rock, a bush, fall off a cliff, you hit whatever button it shows on your screen and you go a lot faster, making traversing everything through the entire map just a joke. It can also be the very first ability you get in the entire game, making the open world aspect of the game not really open world and just going point A to point B, which is also a problem with a lot of other open world games, just showing you what you need to see and not actually looking for things, or just making actually traversing through it not memorable or just, again, a joke. Then again, you do have the option of not getting it, but why wouldn't you? The last thing to touch upon is the upgrade menu. All it does is upgrade your health, arrows, focus, and how many runes you can put in your weapon. Runes just being the percentage increases I talked about later, but actually putting them on a weapon and not leveling your character with them, which I actually do appreciate. It can allow you to min-max to a degree because you only get them from killing Captains and Warchiefs, the better ones from Warchiefs and death threats. Other than that, runes aren't really to be talked about. You can choose what you want to do with them, min-max what you want, say elf shot or crit on your sword, or all in all just better things. The final upgrade for the sword, dagger, and bow allow 20 seconds of unlimited carnage. For the sword you have unlimited executions, for the dagger you go invisible, and the bow allows unlimited fire shots and regular shots. Fire shots being an exploding version of the regular shot. Until your 20 or so seconds are all used up, and then you're back to the normal gameplay loop, granting you an addicting progression of power throughout the entire game, because not only are you allowed to do more, but you actively feel like you're doing more in the process. Looking at you, Fallout 4. Granted, they can range from pushover to complete idiocracy to fight, until you look at their weaknesses and strengths to make them suffer. Strengths and weaknesses? I haven't talked about that yet. What do they apply to? Well, the Captains and Warchiefs. And to talk about the Captains and Warchiefs, I also have to talk about the Nemesis system this game has. And this game kind of introduced it, but it doesn't do it as well as its sequel, although it's still a really good start. This is when I would like to introduce the Nemesis system, because this is going to be the mainstay for a lot of people when they play this game. Not including the wonderful animations this game has, this system allows replayability to a certain degree. It doesn't offer a lot, but it has enough to keep you going. How it works is you find an Uruk with a green symbol above his head, grab him, probe him for information to find a captain. And when you probe him, it shows the captain's location, strengths, and weaknesses, so you know how to prepare for the fight, or you can just go in and do whatever you want with them. So you could end up with Gilgamesh the Warlord, who's a combat master and has no weaknesses and only strengths, or Gork the Friendly, who dies to literally everything, and I made him my captain. You do what you want to do. You see an Uruk you like with poisonous spears and he's tall and his name is the Cook, go ahead and get him. You see one with fiery axes and he's a marauder, go get him too. It's up to you. Do you want to kill them all because he killed you? Go kill him. Although if you do want them as your own, you do have to progress this story a lot, but it plays in the progression of power, and as I already stated, it's a really good progression of power in my opinion at least. Now what makes the Captains and Warchiefs special are the interactions you have with them. If you walk up to one, they'll start an interaction with you, and they can remember something that you did probably half an hour ago that you completely forgot, or like you running away from a fight you had before with them, you killing another captain or warchief and made them run off, or just in general they know who you are and want you dead. On top of that, every captain and warchief have their own unique name, title, look, personality, and voice, adding a little bit more variety and replayability to each playthrough, except there really isn't much to it except that. Just different looks, different captains, and different ways they talk to you. Warchiefs, though, aren't really special. They're pretty much interchangeable with captains. The only difference is you have to find the Warchief's mission, unlock it, and then do some random task that it has for you. Though, if you brand one of the Warchief's bodyguards, you can send him in as a spy and help you fight against the Warchief, but it really doesn't matter because this game is kind of easy at the same time. Since there really are only 4 main types of enemies, being defenders, berserkers, rangers, and what I like to call fodder. Defenders carrying big shields and spears and they can't be countered, whilst berserkers are the more aggressive type. They are also the deadliest with 2 axes and they counter your basic attacks. Rangers being the crossbow wielding or spear wielding people who stay in the back and just throw stuff at you. You do get an icon above your head when they're throwing it at you so you can dodge it out of the way. Though, they are the easiest to take out with a couple sword swings or just 1 bow shot. Now the rest of the enemies are just fodder. They just run at you with a sword and you can take them out in like what, 3 or 4 sword slashes and execution, or wraith flash, wraith fire. It doesn't matter, they're just fodder. The main point of it all being that they can surround you, they can't overwhelm you, and it takes your knowledge to remember how to deal with each one. Are there a bunch of rangers? Run away, maybe get a different position. Is there too much fodder? Use your specials if you can even get it up. Make sure you counter. Make sure you don't try and normal attack a berserker or else you're screwed. It's pretty fun, I'm not gonna lie. I spent 2 hours just running around killing things to gather footage when I only really needed like 30 minutes of it, because I don't think this video is gonna be 30 minutes long, but I gathered a lot of footage because I just kept playing and playing. That's not to say that the gameplay is perfect either. There are some additions that I don't really care for, such as the Graugs and the Caragors being able to ride them. They're cool and all, but they really don't do much entirely for me personally. But that's not to take away from Caragors and Graugs either, because some captains have fears and strengths to them as well. Such as some captains may be fearful of seeing one and run away at the fight, and you have to go chase them, or you can let them run away, or they become enraged by them, increasing their attack power, and you can't really counter them whatsoever. This is also applicable to ghouls as well, because they just come out at night and from the ground, and they don't do anything. You just slash them with X or whatever thing you're playing this on, and they're dead. They don't do anything, and even the DLC, which I will get to later, they still don't do much. Granted, this is only against you and not the AI. Against the AI, when they're in droves, ghouls can kind of murder everything. Same thing with Caragors and Graugs. They kind of take out the AI pretty much. Like 1 Caragor will take out 5 Uduks. All that being said, Caragors and Graugs aren't really my cup of tea. I didn't really use them much at all. You really only can use them later in the game once you meet Torvin, and we'll talk about the story in a bit because I don't like it. But I personally didn't use Graugs all that much throughout the entire game at all, even though they're extremely powerful and can carry you through a lot of the content. This game is fun though. I'm not gonna lie about it. I don't know what else I could explain about it. I mean, I could go into the intricacies of everything, but I don't know how much time that would waste or if it's necessary. Basically being, the dagger can increase your combo counter. There are skills that decrease your combo counter to get executions faster. Some of these abilities are really good. I can explain what the runes do. Again, there are intricacies that I don't think are entirely necessary, but I don't know. It's something I might be able to do with later games and videos. That's something I want to improve on, so please tell me what I could do better, or if I should, I don't know. I just don't know if this entire thing is necessary, but it's something that is part of the game, so I possibly could. Nor do I know shifting metas or a meta of things in a most majority of games. I do know it's extremely good and can be paired really well with each other. Though this game is pretty easy and it takes a lot to kill you, and what really kills you is when you get overwhelmed by a lot of Uduks and you aren't paying attention to what they are doing so you can react accordingly. There are some issues with this game, such as the tracking when you want to execute a dude in front of you, but then Talion runs off and executes another dude. It applies to branding as well, and then there's some sort of weird delay feeling when you press a button. You press the X button and then he slashes kind of like a second later. Sometimes it feels weird. It doesn't happen often, same thing with the tracking issue, but it's there and you notice it pretty well. Like maybe once out of every, I don't know, 7 fights maybe. Those are tiny issues compared to all of its gameplay combined because it's really well done, including the animations of this game, because oh my god, are they fucking awesome. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have much planned for this section. I had like a paragraph on it, but it really didn't mean much unless I actually showed you some of the animations. So for this part, it's just gonna be roughly 3 to 5 minutes of some of my favorite animations and executions in this game. So if you want to skip it, go ahead to this timestamp, because then that's where I'll be talking about the story, which I don't frankly like, and that's not why people play this game. So if you want to relax for 5 minutes, just watch this.
Please. You understand? We were so hungry. Is it a crime to try to...
With their pathetic little bows and arrows. I won't be tricked by that!
I get there is a lore crowd, and I'm not going to dismiss anything that the lore crowd says, but I'm looking at this as a pure story of the game disconnected from the lore, as it's kind of meant to be, but just as a parallel world because it's not canon at all. That being said, it doesn't mean I don't have problems with the story, particularly the ending of it, and how unconnected the mission order is. But to get to that point, we have to go through Talion's story. So Talion goes through a lot during this entire story, starting with losing his family and himself to the Black Hand of Sauron. Celebrimbor awakens Talion, telling him they're bound by pain and they're bound to Mordor, and the only way to be unbound is to go kill the Black Hand of Sauron. So it's a win-win for Talion. He can die and he can get revenge for his family. Hi, editing me here. I'm a dumbass and it's not what Celebrimbor said, so I'm just gonna let this cutscene play so you can see how much of a dumbass I am.
What is this place? See for yourself. Mordor. Now do you believe me, Ranger?
What has happened to me?
You are banished from death. Cast adrift between the worlds of light and dark. Curse binds us together within the walls of Ardar.
If what you say is true, then how do we break this curse?
We find the one who cast it on us. The Black Hand of Sauron.
But they also have to kill the Hammer and Tower of Sauron before that, so we go to gameplay. We get intel from an orc to go find a slaver that has information on where the whereabouts of the Tower of Sauron is so we can go kill him. There we meet Hirgon, a friend of Talion's at the Black Gate, where Talion was a ranger at, but now he's dead. In the same cutscene we get a glimpse of the Golem, and to me he feels like a Deus Ex Machina being put in the story like this, but hey, it's whatever, it's not that great. So after talking with Hirgon, we go follow Gollum, which can also see Celebrimbor and calls him the Bright Lord, unlike everyone else who can't see Celebrimbor. Gollum vows to serve the Bright Lord to find him heirlooms to give Celebrimbor's memory back, because at this point he doesn't know he is Celebrimbor. but Golem's ultimate goal is just to get the Precious back, which he knows Celebrimbor made and technically possesses, but he doesn't know it. So anyway, we leave those two quest lines behind and go find Ratbag, which is one of my favorite characters to interact with Talion. Hence, interact, and not actually as a character, nor story-wise, because he's really not important. He's just a cool guy to hang out with. This being one of my favorite interactions.
I go to tell a chief that I've killed his bodyguard. He turns around, got the exact same face as the dead maggot I just killed. Regica's killed. Twins. What are the odds of...
Just make sure you show up to take the place of the dead war chief.
But the war chief's not dead.
I'm going to go kill him!
Oh, good plan. I'll be right behind you.
Other than that, he's kind of just an orc being there and existing. He says he'll teach us the way of the orc, but it really never happens. He just gives us info on the war chiefs, and we make him one. That's it. I like to reiterate the fact that I like his interactions with Talion, but he's just sidelined in the story majorly. Talion really did not need a Ratbag at all. He could get this information from any orc, hence what happened at the beginning with getting intel from an orc that tried to kill Talion. So we leave him and go back to Golem, who's getting more heirlooms to get Celebrimbor's memory back. So now we find out who Celebrimbor actually is, and Talion is flabbergasted. Then we go back to Hirgon and learn about an utterly useless mechanic of poisoning Grog to get his blasting powder back. All the while we rescue his wife and get a slightly touching moment with them that also reiterates what Talion went through and what he's suffering through. Hirgon then tells us what he's going to do with the blasting powder, and he's going to blow up a monument to Sauron to show everyone who's boss. It blows up, the hammer shows up to fuck shit up, and we tell Hirgon to get the fuck out of here with all of his men. Hirgon obliges, and that's the last we will ever see of him. So we go fight the Hammer of Sauron, the first boss, the only boss, and the hardest boss. Also, Ratbag dies.
Fortunately, you are still alive.
I also do personally like the cutscene that happens after you kill the Hammer of Sauron, which I will show here.
How does your vengeance taste, Talion? Is not the darkness sweet?
You acted too hastily. There's much we could have learned.
He slaughtered my entire family before my very eyes. What would you have done?
Back to the dead body of the Hammer, a woman shows up telling us she's looking for us. She also knows our name and what we are, and that her queen wishes to see us. So we go with her to Nirn. From there we go to talk to the queen. While she looks as if she's on every chem from Fallout, she tells us to go find more of Celebrimbor's heirlooms and a dwarf. We find both, and then we go back to the queen again. Talion then asks the queen why his soul was denied death, and that was because of a blood sacrifice. Remember when his family was game ended while this dude was speaking enchantment table? That's why, but there's a little more to it as well. We'll learn more about that later. Moving on, we learn that the Black Hand and the Tower are going to bring darkness to Mordor, and we need an army. Talion says no men of Gondor will follow him, then Celebrimbor chimes in with an orc army using the Wraith power to obtain them, aka branding. We save a couple people, we get another vision, then we force people into our army, then we go back to the queen again, and she tells us, well, we need to make a war chief, then we go make a war chief, then we go back to the queen, and she tries to kill us. The woman from earlier, named Lithariel, helps us, and the queen goes back to normal because she was under a spell by Sauron, who also wanted to build an army with Celebrimbor, apparently. Once she returned to normal, she tells us of her visions of the Tower and Black Hand are across the Sea of Nirn with an army to destroy us all. We leave to go do our own thing for a bit before going back to Lithariel to get an elixir for her mother. They then find a piece of paper that Uruk leaders are gathering at a fishing village nearby and prepare an ambush for it, but Celebrimbor tells Talion that these are not his people once he sees that Talion is showing a little more caring emotion towards them. So Talion lets them go, and we go to Torvin. Torvin has a short part to play in this game as well, but it has some importance compared to Ratbag, so subsequently this part will be short as well. Torvin makes Talion his hunting partner for the mighty Graug, but teaches him the essentials of the hunt first. They share a couple of moments talking about scars, their past, and just slight banter between each other that is just kind of a joy to listen to. It's nice, but they get back to the topic at hand to get the chisel Celebrimbor's hammer belongs to, doing the final hunt, until the DLC anyway. Their last mission is them tackling the mighty Graug that Talion does 90% of the damage to, and finding the chisel that goes to Celebrimbor's hammer. It's dead, they share a farewell, and if their paths cross again kind of message. Back to Lithariel, she's been captured by the tower and being probed for answers on where Talion is. Talion learns of this and goes to save her, even after Celebrimbor tries to stop him from doing so. He saves her, they have a scene, and then we go brand more warchiefs. Once we have enough warchiefs branded, the queen helps us one more time and gets us boats to go across the Sea of Nirnen to kill the Black Hand of Sauron. Lo and behold, a fake final battle with the first Uruk you ever killed. It's the Tower of Sauron, actually. Revealing a plot twist of Celebrimbor actually chose us in that he is our curse. Celebrimbor doesn't deny it, and he even goes as far as to yell at the tower to try and silence him.
Silence!
Pretty much inciting himself there. After insulting quote-unquote boss battle and fake voices coming from Talion's dead wife and son, the tower makes one last remark before Talion ends him, and this cutscene ensues.
You said we were cursed. You deceived me.
It was Sauron's doing.
This was your doing! I should have died with my family.
I thought you wanted revenge. I can leave you. But there is only one way to close the circle. The Black Hand remains.
Not for long.
I like the dynamic that's going on here and what started, but it gets completely shit on in just 1 second. Returning back across the Sea of Nirnen, the place where the Queen and Lithariel was is now on fire. We go there, and Gollum's there. He gives us a vision, he tries to kill us, we tell him to fuck off. So Talion and Celebrimbor then come to the conclusion that to fight the Black Hand, they're gonna have to go to the Black Gate, where Talion was originally killed. Everything up to this point was okay or good. This is where it all sucks and starts to go downhill. Because I could tell they didn't care, and since they're not going to care, I don't feel like I should care that much either. You have a giant massive last battle with your 5 warchiefs against the Black Hand's 5 fingers, as I want to call them. Then you go up to fight him. After talking with the Black Hand confirms that it was a blood sacrifice, but for Celebrimbor, not Talion. So in completing the blood sacrifice, Celebrimbor and the Black Hand merge, making Sauron. Talion kills Sauron in a quick time event as the final boss of the game. Celebrimbor, now being back in full control with Talion, tells Talion that he's fought Sauron before, it's no use doing it. Then Talion, after just obtaining the revenge to go die with his family, says, "Could you really stop knowing you could have done something?" That is the last thing we hear. That just doesn't make any sense. My main gripe with the entire story is probably the ending. It is the worst thing about it. The other bits that I have problems with aren't as much of a slap in the face compared to the ending. To me, the other 2 bits that were probably the worst were Gollum and Ratbag, only because Ratbag's character was completely wasted, and Gollum was a Deus Ex Machina, used as a Deus Ex Machina, and then had no other piece in the story at all. The rest of the story not being insulting, it's actually kind of a cohesive story, but the ending, though, is just not great whatsoever. It's not the best. Because we go from Talion wanting revenge throughout the entire time he's in those 2 sections of Mordor, to a 180 of him now wanting to stop Sauron, which A, wasn't his original goal, and B, still doing it after he found out Celebrimbor chose him to be stuck here as a wraith. On top of the fact that Talion even acknowledges that he doesn't belong in the world, with Celebrimbor also egging that part of him on. It just doesn't make sense. And the only arguments that I can see for why he did a 180 of his character are the few moments he interacted with Lithariel and showed selflessness, but also acknowledged he doesn't belong in the world still, or the ending cutscene where the Black Hand of Sauron still had some sort of influence over him when his eye changed the color. Regardless, this does not justify a 180 character spin. At least to me, was completely out of the blue, and the story is about power as reflected by the ability tree and how you progress through the story, but it just doesn't add up entirely, even up until the end. Not even 5 minutes before you were fighting the Tower of Sauron, and you were still wanting revenge and just to die to see your family and not trusting Celebrimbor, then you just go to, hey, let's make a new Ring of Power. It just doesn't make any sense. Although it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, it at least led to one of my favorite games of all time, that being Shadow of War. That will be another video, so for now, I can say, cue the transition to the DLC, me. So to start off the DLC list is Lord of the Hunt, and in my opinion, Lord of the Hunt should have just been added to the base game and not an entirely new thing. The main premise of the DLC is, there are now Beastmaster Warchiefs in Nirn. You and Torvin have to go stop them, whilst learning about the new enemies they brought in the game. It's more of a play it if you want to, or go ahead if you have it, because I have the Game of the Year edition and I had it and said, hey, why not? It's not really anything to speak home about, it's alright, I guess. Mechanically, all it adds is a Graug that shoots poison and hurts itself when it does, and a stealth Caragor called the Karagath. Again, I think it should have just been added to the base game, because I'm pretty sure if this was in the base game, it would have added a lot more variety to the mountable beasts. Note how I'm saying base game, because this is its own separate instance. Talion has different skin, there's different mechanics, there's a new tree, there's different runes. Again, as I've always stated before, it should have just been in the base game as an add-on to that, and not just its own thing. It does come with its own story and lore with Torvin, but if you're gonna make me care about the lore, the story of the game has to be good. Case in point, Destiny. And oh boy, do I have a lot of things to say about that game, because as of now, it's popular to hate on that game, but that's for another video. Because oh boy, do I have a lot of things to say about that game, as I bought it when it was in its vanilla state, and I spent over $260 on that game. So yeah, I have a lot to say about that game. Moving on, the Bright Lord DLC is actually deserving of its own instance, because it is Celebrimbor's story before everything, and during the war, when he was trying to get the ring to avenge his family that Sauron killed. Mechanically, the only differences to the base game is that now you have all 3 of the final upgrades for the sword, dagger, and bow into one thing. And a majority of what you're trying to do is build an army to fight Sauron and take over towers. That's all that this DLC pretty much is, and it's just a story for Celebrimbor before the main events of Shadow Mordor. This one is worth more of a playthrough, because if you don't know about Celebrimbor actual from Lord of the Rings, then you can learn about him here, and it's pretty fun, to be honest. The gameplay is basically the same. //kill, //kill, but the ring makes you overpowered, and this one actually has a boss battle compared to the base game. So by the background footage, you can obviously tell I don't have footage of the boss battle, but I just want to gush about it real quick, if you'll allow me to. If not, skip to this timestamp, because this is an actual boss battle. This boss battle I was actually hoping would be in the base game, but it wasn't. What it entails is you as Celebrimbor, having the 5 warchiefs that you branded, you go and fight Sauron. You just straight up go and fight Sauron, although I'm pretty sure either when the battle starts or after you lower Sauron's health for the first time, he takes away all of your warchiefs and makes you fight them, all 5 of them, at one time, all over again. You can either rebrand them or you can kill them. I opted to kill them because I didn't want to fight them over again just in case. Although you can cheese it though with the One Ring's power by rebranding Uduks over and over again just to get it back, because what it essentially does is you're invisible to Sauron as well. You just keep executing Sauron to get his health low, do the little thing that it makes you do, kill him, or do it to the Uduks warchiefs that you have over and over again. It's kind of cheesable, but it's still better than a quick time event in the base game where we should have just had a really good boss battle, but we didn't. So this is better, and it's honestly just better than nothing. End of gush, here's Trials of War. Trials of War is a list of challenges that range from killing 10 warchiefs and 3 captains in 30 minutes to killing 10 warchiefs and 1 life in 15 minutes. It's just a fun little thing to do if you don't want to go back to the story. The last bits of DLC being skins and a mission from the season pass where you just get a single rune from it. That's pretty much all there is for DLC. So on that note, I am done talking about Shadow of Mordor. There are some side content things that I could have talked about, but they don't really do much or bring to the experience entirely at all. Because all the rest of the side content does is bring lore to the land a little bit, change the appearance of your weapons, and give a picture that Celebrimbor says words to. So the main consensus about this game is pretty much true. People do not play it for the story, but for the gameplay. The gameplay is amazing, it's addictive, and I can come back and play it for hours on end, just slaying Uduks left and right. The story ultimately doesn't make entirely that much sense near the end, but it's the progression of power that really pushes through it, and you do come to like some of the characters in this game, such as Ratbag, Celebrimbor, and Talion, and Dorvin, but Dorvin doesn't return in the next game. But again, that's what my next video is going to be about. It's going to be about Shadow of War, and I honestly love that game a lot. But for now, just thank you so much for watching. I really do hope this one was better than my last one. Not the Sora one, but my Dead Space 3, because I kind of want to keep those videos separate, like opinion pieces, but I'm not going to really do a lot of those. I'm just going to do mostly this. But I just do hope this video is better than the Dead Space 3 one, because I learned a lot more in between those two. Just regardless, though, thank you a lot for watching. Please, I want to improve, so anything I can improve upon, please put in the comments below. I really would appreciate it. So on that, again, thank you so much for watching, especially to the end. I appreciate it. Make a sandwich and get some sleep.